Okay, today we're going to learn how to do a rolled stamp slab mug. So what we're going to start with, you're going to have clay just like this that hopefully you've wedged out and got all your air bubbles out of. And the next thing you're going to have to do is you're going to need to throw a slab before you can roll it with the rolling pin, or it's just going to be really, really hard for you. So what I tell students is, first I get it to about 1.5 inches thickness just by slamming it back and forth to get it to that thickness. And then at this point it's really easy to be able to just start throwing that slab. Throwing a slab is where you're literally throwing it down, but as you throw it down, at the last second you're going to pull. So it's like I'm going to rotate my arms backward as I'm throwing it so that it starts flattening out, and you're going to have to twist it, and sometimes it'll bounce, that's okay, and then just keep rotating. And as I rotate this, it's going to get flatter and flatter, and especially for a mug, we want that to be nice and long and skinny. Then I'm going to use these paint sticks to make sure that the thickness of the clay is the same throughout the entire piece. So you're going to use your rolling pin, and you're going to push this way. It's going to be much easier to push as you're rolling than it is going to be to pull it towards you. So one of the things I tell students is you want the entire clay wall to be this thick. So as you're pushing, and if you get any air bubbles in your clay body, like I've gotten right here, you're going to use your needle tool and pop those out, and then just keep rolling, and that'll compress the clay and push the bubbles out. Yikes. It's shaking my camera. And if it's not rolled, if you're having a really, really hard time, you probably should throw it a few more times. Part of my problem is this area is a little too high. Make sure your rolling pin is clean too before you start. If it has any dry clay chunks on there, it will not look good. I'm just going to flip this over so I can roll from the other direction really quickly. It's just easier. Okay, from here, you're going to take that rolling stamp that you created, and it has to be fired, okay? You're going to take that and you're going to go pushing fairly hard, but keeping an even consistency and pushing pretty evenly consistent. I think I just repeated myself. And go longer than you think you're going to need, because it's easier to get rid of excess as opposed to not having enough. Okay, then you're going to need a ruler, preferably one of the clear ones, which I thought I had over here, but mine has disappeared. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, so if you look at this ruler, it has grid marks in it. The red lines are very wonderful for this project because you can use those to line up the lines. And I start with my first line. You want, it has to be 4 inches tall to meet the requirements. So I'm going to cut along this edge 4 inches tall, and then I'm going to make a tick mark for the top and the bottom of the mug. Okay, then I'm going to use this ruler to line up that grid mark edge and go to 11 inches, about 11 inches, depending on if you want to wrap it around the, we'll just go for the outside, it's easier. Okay, 11 inches down. I'm going to do 4 inches across. And then again, another cut on this side. Now, so now I've got my slab rolled. I'm going to need a base for the bottom of my mug. You can use the pattern on it or you don't have to. I'm going to. And I'm going to cut around this black form. The only thing this form is used for is just to get a nice circle. You can use it for more than that, but not for this project. Okay, so now I have a base. Everything is equal thickness. And now I'm going to peel off around it. Okay. Now, what you're going to do is, this clay is really, really soft. So the biggest thing you need to do is just make sure you can peel this base off. And you're probably going to put that on your bat right away so you don't have to lift it up again. But I'm just going to keep mine right here so you can see what I'm doing. And then you're going to peel off very, very carefully. Hopefully it's not too wet of clay. And unpeel it. And then your pattern is on that side. And what you're going to do is you're going to wrap this around right here and just check to make sure it's long enough, not long enough. If it's too long, use your ruler and just cut off how much ever is excess. Using your needle tool and the ruler, you can just slice down the edge if it's too long. Mine's okay. I'm going to push these two together right here along that seam. And you're probably going to lose a little bit of your design on the bottom, and that's okay. And right here, you're probably going to lose a little bit of the design as well, but that's okay too, because that's where we're going to put your handle. So when I put this together, you're going to need your potter's knife and probably a little bit of water. I'm going to spray along the seam on the inside and on the edge. And right here, I'm going to start by knitting across the seam on the inside. And I might not be able to do this while holding it backwards. I'm going to knit that cross back and forth. And this is where it becomes really apparent how deep your rolling stamp was for this particular project, because your design will or will not show up. Now another thing is you need to knit that seam on the inside right there. So when I do this, I put this at an angle and I'm going to come in and I'm going to seal that seam by rotating that potter's knife around the edge. I'm going to do that because I can't hold it up like that while I do that. And then make sure to knit across that seam really well. And you're also going to knit across the seam on the outside. If you lose a little bit of the pattern, that's okay. Just don't want to lose all of it. Okay, now I have the outside and the inside of this seam, and then I have the inside of that, but I also need to do the outside seam right here. So I'm going to go ahead and compress, meaning just push it in, and then I'm going to go ahead and knit that together on the bottom. And then you'll clean it up and you'll use your personal stamp right away while the clay is still soft. If you try to wait, you won't be able to use your personal stamp. So you'd want it either on the inside right there or on the bottom, and then you can put it down and push it back down. And then when it's more dry, you can use your sponge to really clean that up and make it smooth.